Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on immersing into AR and VR. My name is Mark Whelan from Enterprise Ireland. I'm the Program Manager from the Technology Gateway network, and I'm your host for today for the event. As you might be aware, this is the second in our series of Technology Insight webinars, where we're hoping to provide new insights into new and emerging technologies for people to try and get people to understand a bit better how these may impact you and help you in your businesses. So today's event is being presented by Stephen Barnes from the Technology Software Systems Group in WIT, and I'm going to hand over to Stephen very shortly. But before I do, I just want to give you a quick run through of the format of today's event. So we will be videoing the presentation and it will be available afterwards. We'll also record all questions that are asked, and we'll send out answers to questions that we might not be able to answer at the time. Stephen's going to give about a 30-minute presentation, which will be followed by about 15 minutes Q&A. If you wish, you can send your questions as we go through it, so we have them ready when Stephen is done. And if there are questions, as I said, that aren't answered, we go back to them at the end. So just to make sure that we get the best value out of Stephen, I'm going to hand over to him now. And as I said, I hope you enjoyed today's presentation, and I'll talk to you again once we have the Q&A. Thank you, Stephen.
Hi all, can you see me there? Yeah. Hi, my name is Stephen Barnes. I am with the TSSG Technology Gateway. I might just turn the webcam off just to go through this presentation, if that's okay. I have been with, I'm an experienced research engineer with the Mobile Ecosystem and Pervasive Sensing Research Unit, specializing in AR/VR. My background is a bit diverse, including electronic engineering, education, and social care work. I've been with TSSG since 2016, working on AR/VR projects since that time. So just in terms of the TSSG is part of the Applied IoT Technology Gateway cluster in Enterprise Ireland. There's 5 technology gateways which apply state-of-the-art Internet of Things technologies to new and existing projects, processes, and services. This encompasses developing new and innovative approaches to applying sensors, communications, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, data analytics, and of course, augmented reality and virtual reality to solve existing problems, as well as developing new ideas that will enhance their business. So these gateways include Command in Athlone and IT, which specializes in connected media, IMAR in MTU Kerry, with a focus on intelligent mechatronics and RFDI, Nimbus in MTU Cork, which, amongst other areas, has specialism in embedded computing and software systems, TSSG in Waterford IT, with a focus on mobile services, and WiseR, specializing in wireless solutions at Letterkenny IT. So the Telecommunications Software Systems Group, just to give you an overview, it's an internationally recognized research institute hosted by WIT. Our expertise areas include mobile platforms and services, data analytics and social computing, adaptive networks and services, and augmented and virtual reality. Over the past 3 years, we have delivered innovative solutions to over 110 startups in Ireland and have spun out a number of leading international startups such as Feed Henry. So I hope you don't mind, just before we progress, I'm aware that when it comes to these interactive technologies, that there are a lot of terms thrown around, such as AR, VR, MR, XR, and spatial computing. And even though you're attending this webinar shows an awareness or interest in these terms and what they mean, I hope you don't mind if I just go through the definitions and a little example to differentiate between different augmented, virtual, and mixed realities. XR is an umbrella term for all immersive technologies that merge the real and virtual worlds, objects, and interactions. So it covers everything, really. So whether you're playing Pokemon Go on a 5-year-old iPhone, or you take part in a high-spec immersive virtual experience at a state-of-the-art cave system, it's all XR. Some definitions interpret the term extended reality as referring to how this tech can extend the reality that we experience. However, it's more in line with being a catch-all for current and future spatial computing technologies. So now we're getting down to business. AR is when you start to bring digital elements into your real world view to inform you about specific objects in your environment. So in this case, somebody's using a mobile device, they're looking at the body and they're getting annotated information. So examples of AR devices include modern mobile phones and tablet devices. Mixed reality, this is sometimes, to make matters worse, sometimes referred to as hybrid reality. You can think of it as a subcategory of AR though, except instead of having 2D information such as text, audio, and video and images, you actually replace the object with a 3D model, which you can interact with in real time. Essentially, the virtual object behaves like a physical object. It will remain in place as you move around, or you can manipulate it and move it around the surfaces in your vicinity. So as you can see in this example, somebody's looking at the ruins of a high cross, and instead they're seeing a virtual representation of how that cross would have looked before. So replacing in their view with a 3D image. You can use mobile devices, but examples of MR devices steer more towards the Microsoft HoloLens and HoloLens 2 Magic Leap devices. Virtual reality, this is easily the most well-known. Your entire environment is virtual. If you were creating a VR application, you would need to replicate the entire environment as well as the objects of interest. So almost as a summary, I drag up my museum example. As you can see, the reality is, in this case, you have this Fabergé egg. It's actually in a glass cabinet. You can look at it, but you can't touch. It looks great, but what do you know about it? Well, using an AR app, you can receive information about this artifact, such as where and when was it created, who was it created for. All of this information is made easily accessible via multimedia files, which you can view in your device in your field of view whilst you're looking at the artifact. Now, if you want to take a closer look at that egg, well, with MR, you now have a 3D virtual representation, which you can scale, rotate, move around the room, take a closer look at it, take an image next to it, whatever you want. You don't even need to be at the museum. With an MR app, which is really useful, especially in the current situation with COVID, you can fire up a virtual version of the egg at home, put it on your coffee table, and find out information about it. Now, with VR, you definitely do not need to be at the museum. In this case, it's a basic virtual environment in a museum, but you could replicate anything, really. You could actually have it be, you could see being St. Petersburg back in the late 19th century, seeing Peter Fabergé create the eggs. So with that in mind, we'll step back in from the museum and go to TSSG. Our expertise in interactive technologies encompasses AR/VR middleware software developments, application development such as creating bespoke applications across specific verticals, including health, manufacturing, AR/VR for education and training, AR/VR for awareness building, and dynamic adaptive content. Our research interests as well, just to make a note of it, is it includes visual processing, virtual neural rehabilitation, and understanding how the brain perceives emotions, as well as social cognitions training using AR/VR. We've used a number of devices, and we have them at our disposal, including Vive Pro, Quest 2, Pimax, the HoloLens 2, and physiological sensing and eye tracking, and depth sensors and LiDAR sensors. The best way to show it is via our MR lab. It's funded by the Enterprise Ireland Institutes of Technology Capital Call 2019. So as you can see in this video, we have a range of technology available to us. This includes two 84-inch 4K touchscreen monitors, CatVR treadmill, RealSense depth sensing cameras, RealSense L515 LiDAR depth cameras, iPads with LiDAR scanners, Microsoft HoloLens 2 MR headsets, Oculus Quest 2 headsets, mobile headsets, HTC Vive Pro Eye, Pimax AK, and as well as Pupil Lab prototype eye trackers, and a Maverick 4K drone. The thing with it is this testbed lab is available for free to qualifying projects through the Technology Gateway. So it enables you to create a broad variety of applications, from high-end commercial immersive VR products to proof of concept AR prototypes from mobile devices. So just to give context to our AR/VR work and how our expertise may be of benefit to your business interests, I would like to go through a discussion of some case studies. Now, this in no way covers the length and breadth of our work, but it does illustrate a wide variety of applications in different areas, some of which might be of interest to you. And in considering these case studies, as well as just AR and VR in general, it's important to understand that AR and VR do not exist as single points. Rather, they encompass a broad spectrum of devices, content, and technologies. VR and AR experiences can be experienced on different hardware at different levels of fidelity and function. So our work has ranged from design development from very early mobile-based AR prototypes with very few features, all the way through to LiDAR-based high-end VR applications, effectively going from low cost to high cost scalability in terms of design and development when you talk about features and what you want to include with it, as well as the target platforms, the devices that you want to run, and the operating costs. So, and our work with clients has been funded by Enterprise Ireland's innovation vouchers and innovation partnerships, as well as contract research and development. And these case studies, as well as other case studies, are available on the TSSG website here, as well as the Enterprise Ireland Technology Gateway AIoT page. So we've completed a number of innovation vouchers for a wide variety of companies. And sometimes this has actually been a starting off point for our collaborations. The 5K innovation voucher has been utilized to map out business cases or business potentials that XR technology can have, working through a technology roadmap that captures this and mapping out the path from concept to commercialization. Innovation vouchers have also been used for wireframe prototypes. And in this particular case study, we were approached by a well-established architecture company who were interested in the potential of AR and VR on their business processes. This was different to a lot of the other technology roadmaps that we had worked on, as it wasn't just one particular use case or area they wanted a solution for. Instead, it was looking at the entirety of their workflow. They weren't sure where AR and VR could prove an impact, and they wanted help both in addressing where it could and how it could, and how feasible it would be, and which to include. So examples would be showcasing 3D designs to potential customers, as you can see here. Instead of going through a map or a computer simulation, you have a 3D model. People here using Microsoft HoloLens to view it. This picture isn't actually from that particular project, just to let you know. And there's also, another case could be walking through a fully realized life-sized version of the model on a green site and receiving client feedback. Integrating mixed reality with a work scheduler is another thing. These are all areas that have been used subsequently in different architecture and engineering and construction applications. But in this particular case, the technology roadmap was used as a springboard by the client for adoption of AR components into their current practice. We have other technology roadmaps that you may be interested in, include areas such as sports training and entertainment, capturing live performance, as well as others. Now, this is actually an interesting use case where we developed an education platform, and it was where we worked with a client from concept to design to implementation of the prototype. So it actually did start with working with them, even though it was CRD, it was working on the concept and coming up with a technology roadmap indicating how it could be interpreted, what type of technology to use, and also putting in a path for how we're going to get this proof of concept prototype and where it will be extensible, how it could be taken to a commercialized package. And one of the benefits for VR, just so you know as well, in terms of training or education platforms, is that the choices individuals make in VR, they're more reflective of the choices that they make in the real world. Also within VR, you can receive a quantitative measurement. As an administrator, you can receive an information regarding how a user is behaving and performing. You're able to determine what they interact with, what they're looking at, and for how long. From this, you can extrapolate their decision-making process. And also, like users in VR environments, it's a distraction-free environment. It's tailored to visual and kinesthetic learning styles. So in this case, which is for second-level students, it was replacing essentially an aptitude test where it was pen and paper methodologies with something that actually engages the user a bit more. Our CoronaVRus application, this won the People's Choice Award at the KTI Impact Awards last year. And it's an interactive VR experience that was developed in-house to provide information about COVID-19 and guidelines, primarily to children. The basis for it was a recent study conducted by the University of Maryland, which indicated using VR headsets resulted in approximately 8.8% improvement in recall accuracy. So we're really focusing on information retention, engagement, and reassurance. And in this experience, users were able to practice social distancing in a virtual environment, as well as learning hand washing techniques. So just to show you just some of the parts there, we also have a link on YouTube if you'd like to see this. In this particular case, it was giving instructions, and then the user had a little gamification where they were actually placing cards to show, okay, this is what you do in terms of different steps for hand washing. So let's just move on from there now. And just to show you, this is a recent virtual heritage project that we worked on, and it serves to illustrate the multidisciplinary approach that we take at TSSG. Our clients, KLP, they came to us with the view of having an XR application, which would enable visitors to the historical artifacts in Lingaun Valley to view them as they would have appeared when they were first created. So in this case, you're looking at a megalithic tomb from the Neolithic age. So it's about 5,000 years old. We were able to create a 3D model of it. And in this particular case, we're just placing it on a green site area. It's part of an AR application. And historical accuracy was an absolute prerequisite for ensuring high quality content. So we do work with third parties. In this case, it was working with an archaeologist and art historian to make sure that the documentation for the prototype, as part of any virtual heritage application, you have to ensure documentation, representation, dissemination. So the documentation was really where we went in, and the archaeologist and art historian was able to give us information about how the stones, which are not in the same position now, how they would have appeared at that time, and how the actual tomb itself would have appeared. This was also the case for high crosses, which date from the 9th century. This here is just an illustration of, again, it's an augmented reality, but it's showcasing the solstice effect that you can actually view at the Knockrow Passage tomb up in Lingaun on December 21st each year. So we acquired relevant information from the archaeologist and art historian. However, beyond that, at TSSG, we have a team that have been working on this project, which comprise 3D modelers, UI UX designers, software developers, and testers. So we had all of the expertise in-house to see this from documentation through to representation, creating the 3D models, adding interactivity to it, ensuring that there was a good user interface and that there was robustness as well. And then beyond that, for dissemination, in this case, it was for it's for mobile devices, so Android and iOS. So just beyond that one, just to show you. And our final case study that I'd like to discuss was just a digital twin immersive technology situational training. The idea is VR can be used, as it was in this case, to deliver realistic scenarios without the cost or inconvenience of having to recreate the scenarios through ring-fencing company resources. So VR learning can be more cost-effective at scale. PricewaterhouseCoopers conducted a global study into the effectiveness of VR for soft skills, with the findings indicating that VR learners are trained up to 4 times faster than with other methods. VR learners were up to 275% more confident in applying what they learned following their training, which was a marked improvement over classroom learners or e-learners. Also, VR simulations, and this was a really good point, was that they allow trainees to practice tasks in a realistic manner that could be dangerous for novices to undertake physically. In this particular case, a client required the replication of specific tools in production line to establish training tasks, which had the benefit of not needing to ring fence in-use components on the production line, and there's less need for a supervisor presence. And this is where you can also go, even though within the scope of this particular project, we were very focused on VR and AR via just utilizing web VR for people to be able to see on their devices replications of the object models. But AR can help with knowledge sharing as well. This is another part because it allows for offsite experts to see what their colleagues in the field can see and advising them via video chat, sharing relevant documentation, real-time annotation of content in the user's field of view. So just to show you as well, just in terms of the other partners of the AIoT, you have a Command in Athlone IT. As you can see, there's a similarity to the type of work that we're doing in TSSG as with Command in Athlone, where they actually have focus on user-centered design and assessments, and they're partnerships are ongoing in the areas such as smart manufacturing, education, and tourism arts, similar to ourselves. They have an XR suite, which involves a cave, and just to let you know, a cave is a collaborative virtual environment system. It's a real immersive space that's designated there, which includes haptic technology for giving feedback for users' performance and what the user is actually doing. Gives them a real sense of immersion, and they also provide consultancy on bespoke application design and development. There's the WiseR lab in Letterkenny IT. They provided just information on one of the projects that they're working on, which is focused on axial spondyloarthritis, which is a rheumatic disease causing inflammation and structural changes to the skeleton. I'm not too knowledgeable on the condition, but one of the things that they've actually focused on, which was something that I've seen a similar Croatian study on, was the use of VR as a for mindfulness training. Especially, I've seen cases where it's actually being used for people who have cancer when they're undergoing leukemia, when they're undergoing chemotherapy. And still one of the things is that they actually use immersive VR, or they use VR headsets to actually give them a sense of mindfulness as part of that. It's just a distractive technique, and it improves patient engagement while simultaneously collecting granular mobility data for this particular study. And there's the ACE suite in the IMAR technology group in the MT Munster Technology University Kerry campus. And they actually have custom built, it's a massive curved screen that they have there, as well as full floor projection. So they provide similar solutions in terms of virtual reality, 360-degree cameras for object capture, and they have the HoloLens V2s similar to ourselves also. And then there is the other Munster Technology University campus in Cork, which has the Nimbus Technologies Gateway. Their main domains include energy, water, smart buildings and cities, e-health, e-learning, and location-based services. In terms of the XR-based processes, they're very much focused on the extended reality innovation lab that they have, which consists of the latest VR, AR, and MR tech to support and grow innovation, as well as servicing the needs of Industry 4.0. The XRIL covers a range of applications similar to ourselves in terms of learning and simulation training, and they have equipment and facilities maintenance as well. They have that specialism there. Just to let you know, in terms of TSSG, for contacting us, our main contact them would be Miguel, our Technology Gateway Manager. We also have Carol and Jim, our Business Development Executives. And just if anyone was interested in this type of research, there's a funded PhD opportunity being offered by Waterford IT on education technology and neurodiverse learning. So using educator toolkits to engage neurodiverse students, neurodiversity encompassing autism, dyspraxia, and other conditions. And it's to help them train in immersive learning environments in higher education. There's a link there for that. So any questions? Be that point there.
So that's great, Stephen. Thanks very much, Mark, here again. So if you see the pop-out screen from the GoToWebinar, there is an ability there for people to write questions and send them on to us. So started to see a few come through. So I'll pass them on to Stephen, and you can. So do you deliver commercial solutions, or are you limited to just researching solutions?
Oh no, it's certainly commercial solutions. As we were saying before, we even with the case studies that we were talking about, it is very much focused on commercialization. We work with startups. We also work with SMEs. So we do we have developed other applications which are being commercialized. So absolutely, if you talk to Miguel as well, that would be our point of contact for any discussion. Through discussion of that. So as I was trying to show just with the case studies, it was, we work with it from concept all the way through to commercialization. So it would be from concept to prototype to then going towards a commercialized solution. The KLP application, for example, that's one that I'm just wrapping up at the moment, and that's a commercialized solution which will be available on both the App Store as well as Google Play in the coming month.
Okay, so I suppose an obvious question. you have all the nice equipment Enterprise Ireland bought. So are VR and AR apps expensive, and all that equipment for small businesses?
It depends, and again, this is not trying in any way to dodge the question. It all depends on what your use case would be, and in terms of what it is you want to do. Because and this has been a turnoff really in terms of both AR and VR for years, has been access and in terms of scalability. So you can work with something from as simple as you could have a marker-based app where you want to show information about something that you have either in your shop or something that, some product that you have and you want to provide annotated information on it. And it's it's quite a short process to actually create an application which will provide that and will be accessible to anybody with a modern smartphone or a tablet device. So they would be able to do that. So, and in terms of development time, it'll be quite short, because essentially you provide an image, cover your logo, and then this content will be generated after your tablet recognizes this. And that can be even your entrance, and it goes all the way up to when you go to, if you want to use things like the HoloLens, which you're talking about, oh, this is like a €3,500 device, or even like when you talk about VR headsets, some people get turned off because they look at things like they hear about the likes of the Valve Index or the Voucher VR3, and you're talking about thousands of euros. Whereas, even if you want to create a VR application, you could create one that was just for the likes of the Oculus Quest. So in terms of equipment, you're talking about €379 to buy one. And in terms of the application development, that can be quite shorter. And again, it all depends on what type of features you want. So if you're a small business and you wanted to try out things like including some AR as part of it, I definitely say, well, look, we talked to you, we might even do like say, for example, an innovation voucher, one of the Enterprise Ireland innovation vouchers, where we would come up with a technology roadmap and a wireframing of this is the prototype. It's like for 5K, and then look to develop a short-term, like a marker-based application which can be commercialized then from there. And then it can go all the way up to, if you are, say, you're part of like a large pharma, or you're part of a larger organization, and you're saying, look, it's very important that we kind of that we get complete digital twin of our process. We want to train people in, but we don't want to needs to be like taken away from what it is we're trying to do. We can't turn off part of the production line to train 10 people in. So it'd be like, okay, now we're going more towards using our LiDAR scanners to basically create a representation of where they are on the floor and exactly what the model is. You get a really detailed mesh from that. You're able to then create your VR application, and you might end up using on a high-end device. So it can go, and you could even have things like TensorFlow for like object recognition as part of that, or machine learning processes there, which would cost more money in terms of development, would cost more money in terms of operating costs. So it goes, it's a case of depending on feature. Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, dude, I stopped you there because we have a lot of good questions coming in. So maybe some quick ones. So where does the intellectual property lie in terms of innovation voucher? That's with the company. That's because the money is seen as money coming directly from the company. So any IP is with the company. In terms of contacting TSSG, initially telephone or email, maybe I'd suggest email to Miguel, if that's okay. So are you doing any research specifically around, I'd say that's health and safety and VR?
Safety in VR, not at the moment. No, my own research interests are actually in social cognition training for people with autism. So, and my colleagues are, one is focused on VR in education for language interpretation, and the other is on virtual rehabilitation, neural rehabilitation. So, not at the moment, but that's not to say that,
Okay. All right. So would Stephen know of any studies that demonstrate how AR can be used to increase motivation, particularly in an education setting?
Yes, it's more, certainly the thing with AR is like the majority of studies that have been implemented so far is, and has been very much focused on retention and engagement, and is in VR. And one of the reasons is you can actually analyze, even with eye tracking, like, exactly where is the person looking when they're doing this, and then testing them afterwards. And their studies have proven there is a marked increase in retention rates. For AR, at the moment, I'm not sure of a particular study on it, but because you're actually, when you're talking about AR, you're talking about using more visual. You can have auditory, and you've kinesthetic learning styles are engaged, and even with the different multiple intelligences theory, like you can make things more musical that way. So it will, even just using the medium itself, will engage people more, especially children. It will tie into their specific learning styles better. But in terms of an AR study, if you could please send on your details, I'll send one out to you by the end of tomorrow, one that I've seen, or even the VR ones that I've seen to date, if that helps.
Okay, and just remind people that if we don't get an opportunity to answer every question, the program generates an Excel sheet of questions that we can answer, and we'll send out with the link to the recorded video later. So very interested in AR. So the placing of a building on a site, is this already done, or is it worth contacting you about?
Oh, it's certainly worth contacting us about. I mean, it's something that, and this is one of the things with, it's actually one of the first things I worked on 5 years ago, was actually placing, from a SketchUp model, placing a building on a site. It wasn't actually done as part of the case study that I mentioned. It was just a feature that we had been looking into. There is, in terms of when the Microsoft HoloLens first came out in 2016, I don't mean to be long-winded, but just to show you, like a Trimble had actually the first commercialized application on was Trimble SketchUp Viewer, which would enable you to do so. And again, this is more a matter of using a mixed reality headset, but it's a subscription service. So in terms of, it all depends, and this is where we come in a lot as well, is if you're wanting to place a building, but you wanted to somehow to integrate with your specific backend of what you want to do, so that if there are changes made to the model while you're in the augmented reality application, you want to update, say, BIM information, you want to update GIS information, or you want to kind of make changes that will then be integrated in your own software. That's something that we could definitely investigate. There are a number of applications that are available at the moment that cover parts of these features, or cover these features and more, but they're usually part of a subscription service that's quite large. So that's where we come in, really.
Okay, so a follow-on question maybe, but from somebody else. Is it possible to integrate, from your architecture case study, are there possibilities for integration into BIM, building information modeling systems?
Yes, that was one of the things that we investigated there, and
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, have you any experience in implementing conversational AI, artificial intelligence?
It's actually mainly through the use of. We actually have an open source voice assistant platform, Mycroft, that we've used, and have used as part of an IoT project, using augmented reality and using something that the NHS do at the moment, where they actually have augmented reality to allow multiple doctors to view their patients. But in our terms, you can use augmented reality with NLP, and we use Mycroft for that. So yes, that's something that we have experience in, and we'd be very interested to speak with you if you'd like to pursue it.
Okay, maybe a very broad one. How do you see mixed reality being applied to industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
Wow.
Have we time for that?
The one thing I will say with mixed reality, and just especially mixed reality as an offshoot of augmented reality, and certainly we've seen a growth in people asking about it at the current time, where you aren't actually physically able to make visits or have telepresence, and mixed reality certainly has that there. I mean, you have at the moment, and I'll make this short, don't worry. I remember when mixed reality, when we had the HoloLens, the original HoloLens had a 35-degree field of view, and the competitors were falling by the wayside essentially, and we weren't sure. It's like, is this too early? And then the HoloLens 2 came out, it has better field of view is like 54 degrees, which you might be thinking, oh, it's not much, but it's noticeably better. And with mixed reality, you have the Magic Leap 1, which hasn't fully taken off, but I do see certainly in the next 5 to 10 years, I can see mixed reality really becoming, especially as we've been talking about things like 4D schedulers, everything like that will be part of mixed reality, spatial computing in general, telepresence for conferences. I can certainly see that coming across. At the moment, there is accessibility as well in terms of price, where you talk about the HoloLens 2 costs about €3,500, and the nearest competitor, Magic Leap 1, is 2,300. So I'm not sure, but yeah, it's come on so much in the last 5 years that it's exciting times.
Okay, so maybe again, this is something that Miguel might get back to the person on. So aside from innovation vouchers, any other route for small startups and entrepreneurs to access the expertise of TSSG and partners? So there are obviously other funding mechanisms through Enterprise Ireland, and I think maybe the best thing to do there is to contact Miguel directly, maybe if you have something you particularly want to do. You talk about different virtual learning environments. Have you done any work with personalized learning environments adapting artificial intelligence?
Yes, we've actually had a dynamic adaptive content based on it's one of the things that I'm trying to think. I don't want to give to in terms of I'll put it like this: we've had it based on metrics, so based on where you're talking about things such as EEG, ECG, and you also have skin conductance as well, to determine a person's emotional state. So you have a learning environment, and the content is adapted based on all of the information that you have regarding the person's emotional state and how they're actually interacting with content in their area. If they're coming to a level of frustration or they're coming to a level of ease, the content is adapted based on that. So that's realistically what we've done in that area.
Okay, this might seem an odd question, but I'm sure it's not. Does continuous use of AR or VR make people sick?
That's something that has AR. First of all, AR, I'd say no, not with augmented reality, because one of the there's two things really about virtual reality. One is motion sickness, which has come on in leaps and bounds, because when you think of especially VR 5 years ago, one of the things was you're immersed in this virtual environment. You're moving through these handheld controllers, and sometimes your head will move a certain direction. You move with the controllers one way, so your actual you could even be still and then have the environment move around you. So if you are susceptible to motion sickness, you may actually feel something there. That's improved a great deal now with refresh rate. Say, for example, the Oculus Quest 2, you have a 90 hertz refresh rate, so anything over 60 hertz is good, so that the environment is moving a lot better. Another aspect is cyber sickness, where some people have felt overwhelmed by virtual environments, and this can include even, I remember an example that I was on was The Ledge. I don't know if anyone's ever tried that VR game where you have a feeling of you're overwhelmed by the environment, and then you're also you're at a certain height and fall off that height, so it can cause issues there. So I'd say if you are susceptible to motion sickness, stay away from VR roller coaster as your first VR experience, and you should be okay. But it has come on a great deal. There was even at one point there was a discussion of having a virtual nose, which gave people a point that even if they're moving around, they have this one point that they can look at. But as refresh rates improved, as technologies improved, fidelity's improved, yeah.
Okay, so have you any experience in hand tracking apps in either AR or VR, i.e. hand interfacing?
Yes, actually, I probably get in trouble with my colleagues for not mentioning it. We worked on the VR glove at Tyndall, which won our software award back in 2017. But beyond that, hand tracking has become part of it, especially with the Oculus Quest, and you have mixed reality toolkits. You have the HoloLens 2 as well. But we would have had, in terms of hand tracking, you have the HoloLens 2, you're able to track all the fingers of a hand in a mixed reality headset. In terms of the Oculus Quest, we have through an Unreal plugin, we have focused on hand tracking. in virtual reality, which is essentially the Oculus Quest 2. It's as I was saying, it's €379. It's all in one. You don't need to be tethered to a high-end piece, high-end machine, so you can run it all there. And yes, hand tracking is part of that.
Okay, so you just another question that came in. So if people don't have handsets, can you still utilize VR in a web browser?
Yes, there is for the web browser itself. I mean, you have things like WebVR. The problem being, especially if you think with a lot of those types of applications, you're looking at the likes of using your mobile device, and sometimes there can be issues with that. With the likes of WebVR based tech, but I'd say even with we tend not to go towards that. We tend to use more Unreal and Unity, especially like for actually developing applications. They're just more, you get a greater sense of immersion, whether it's with augmented reality or virtual reality applications, and as well they're more robust because it's a WebVR. We've tried it a few times on different projects, still using it on certain projects based on requirements, but it's not as robust as actually just developing an application. And sometimes the application development time is very comparable that I just say, just go with the app.
Okay, so maybe just one last question there before we pause for today. So if people are starting and wondering where to start, so what technology should I use for augmented or virtual reality?
This actually would tie in quite well with the question before about like how expensive is this. It really, I don't want to say horses for courses, but it really depends on what your use case is in terms of, as you can see from the short video that I had there showcasing the heritage artifact in the Greenside area. I mean, you actually get a sense of immersion from that. And it's augmented reality application run on a mobile device. You know, it's run on an iPhone, an iPad, a Samsung Galaxy phone. You know, it's you can do that. So it would all depend on what exactly is your business trying to do. And again, it can go from, if you just want to try kind of see how it goes, you can kind of try a very low end augmented reality application targeted for mobile devices using maybe marker-based tracking. If you're saying, look, I want to actually do something that's relevant to something in the real world, I want to use markerless placement of contents or the GPS, then you know you can do that. All the way up to where you're saying, look, I want to, I'm getting into Industry 4.0. I want to have complete digital twin, and I want it to even be a case of if I create some changes in a virtual representation of a machine, I want that to be replicated in the real world and have that kind of interface. Like, yes, you know, you can do that. So again, it would talk to us and we'll discuss this and kind of work in which way.
That's lovely. Thank you, Stephen. So I think that's a nice place to stop for today, and to thank Stephen for the excellent presentation and all the answers to the questions. So just before I go, I'd like to remind people that this is a series of webinars, and our next webinar will be on the 25th of March, and it's on essential technical tools to enable a successful bioeconomy, and we'll be presented by Shannon ABC. You can see the events listed on technologygateways.ie website, and there'll be more information sent out and available on the Enterprise Ireland website. But just like to thank everybody today for their attendance. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, the recording will be available probably early next week, and we'll send it out to everybody who's registered. So just like to say thank you again, and hopefully see you at another one of our presentations soon. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.